one past task discussion. So the main two parts that I included in my vector class is these two different sort methods. The first sort method relates to the iComparable interface. With here we just have the sort, and then it has the data which it takes in, which is the array, and then from 0 to count, so pretty much it works with the whole array, and then the compare is a default. The way that this works, after I use it in my student class, is for this to work, it needs a built-in comparing method. So for the student class here, we'll have the comparable interface, and we actually use this compare to. Yep, and then for the public void, we use the comparer interface. This allows us to use external comparers, which we could create, and they could compare and sort through data in however we create it to. So that works with the ascending, descending, and even number first interfaces. And the way that it works is similar to this, except we define the compare that we want to use. So if it's null, then it just goes to the default, and the way that it works is you include the data for the array, and then it goes from start to end, and then you also include the comparer. That's how to call it with the sort method. For the tester class, we have a few different comparers that we use. So the ascending and descending, they're pretty similar. So basically it uses the compare interface for integers, and we compare A to B. And for example, if A was 5 and B was 2, the answer would be 3, which is a positive, which shows that A is bigger than B, and therefore A should come after B. And then for descending, it's pretty much just reversed. For the even number first, this is a bit different. So also for the compare interface with using integers, it checks if a number is even or odd, and basically if it's even, so let's say the number was 2, if the 2 was divided by 2, you'd get 0, and if it's odd, you'd obviously get a leftover of 1. So let's say if A was an even number and that equaled 0, and B was an odd number, so the outcome of that would be 1. The result of this would be -1, which would then show that B is bigger than A and should come after, which then pushes the odd numbers to the end and keeps the even numbers towards the front. If they are equal, so if let's say they're both odd, they're both even, then they wouldn't change their spot because they'd be considered equal. Yep. For the next part, we have the student class, which I created. So this part just gets the name and the ID. The main part, which we had for the sort method, so with the comparable interface, we use the compare to thing, which allows us to create our own comparison thing within the student class, and it allows us to, or it helps like a student object compare itself to another student object, so it knows how to do that. Basically, the way that we do this is we take this ID, so the current object that's being working with, and it compares it with its other object that's been compared to. If it's smaller, return -1, so you know it's smaller. If it's bigger, return positive integers, so we know it's bigger. And if they're the same, return 0. For these are comparers, but they're used for the student class. So for this one, just the ascending ID, so it just returns the outcome of A to B. So if A is bigger, then we would know it returns 1. If it's smaller, it returns negative, and it rearranges the student array based off that. After this are the descending names and descending ID comparer. For this, it checks the first letter of the name, and it also compares that, and then if that's different, then we move on to the ID to sort out the different names. So if there's like multiple people with the same names, and it sorts them descending with their ID. Once again, it uses the compare, which is for the comparer interface, and then the compare to, which is for the student class to compare the different objects. As an example, I can pull this up after running the code. We have test G, which we have a bunch of students with a bunch of different IDs. Pull up test G, EFG. And then you can see we create the students, we add the names to it, and we use the sort method with the descending names and ID, which would be this, with the comparer being obviously that. And as you can see, we have Vicky at the bottom. She is at the bottom because V is the lowest. Like if A was equal to 1, then B was equal to 2 going down. V would be the biggest number. So that would be at the first thing. And 10, 5, 0. So it's going descending to smaller numbers, with Cindy being the smallest. We're starting with C, which would equal 3, and then her ID, which is equal to 1. I'll just run the code again to show that it works. Oh yeah, so this was just to show that the sort method for the comparer pops up, and we have test B through here. So yeah, this sort method, which uses the comparer. Once again, we have the vector sort, which is the comparer. This thing through here. Yep.